Hey, Pastor Josh here. We're reading Genesis chapter 17, verses 6 through 8. God just changed Abram's name to Abraham, which means father of a crowd, father of a multitude. Abraham is going to be a father of many, many people, ultimately because of his faith in God. God told him what he was going to do. Abraham believed him. And Genesis chapter 15 verse 6 says that God accounted it to him as righteousness. God counted it toward him as righteous. So God made Abraham righteous because of his faith. And that's the same type of faith that we have when we put our trust in Jesus Christ. When you believe what Christ did for you on the cross, then God accounts you as righteous. You are justified. God looks at you and it's just as if you've never sinned. He has no thought of what you have done. He sees Christ, he sees goodness, and he treats you in that fashion. And so in that way, Abraham is our father, and he is a father of many nations. Of course, he actually became the father of many technical nations as we think about, but the fulfillment of that promise is far greater than that. It's because of the spiritual children that he has, those that have faith in Christ. So God continues his promise. He says, I will make you exceedingly fruitful. Abraham, remember at this point, Abraham has not had Isaac. He has had Ishmael, and that is not the child of promise. That's the child of works. That's the child of man's effort. And Ishmael and his descendants will cause problems for the chosen seed, for Isaac, for the Israelites. And so Abraham did wrong, and Sarah did wrong in taking this upon themselves to make themselves fruitful. But God's saying, no, I'm going to make you fruitful. And yet again, we must remember there is no son. Sarah and Abraham have not had a child together. In fact, Abraham's going to become frustrated, and he's even going to tell God, just let Ishmael be the one. We don't have to have one ourselves. But God says, I will make you exceedingly fruitful. You've not had anybody yet, like the way you're supposed to, but I'm going to make you fruitful, and I will make you into nations, and kings shall come from you. And I will establish my covenant between me and you and your offspring after you throughout their generations for an everlasting covenant. So the covenant, the agreement that God makes with Abraham is an everlasting one. It lasts forever. It lasts at least until the time that God would say it does not last anymore. And it would be God, but the Apostle Paul, God through the Apostle Paul, does make the argument that this covenant, this agreement that God made with Abraham supersedes, overtakes the Mosaic covenant, the covenant that God made with the Israelites on Mount Sinai, the covenant that God made to the nation when they came out of slavery. The Apostle Paul makes the argument that the covenant that God made with Abraham was even greater than all of those laws of the Old Testament. We see that here. This is an everlasting covenant, this covenant of faith, this covenant of grace. If you put your faith in God and you trust in Him, then it will be accounted to you as righteousness. And God says it will be throughout their generations for an everlasting covenant to be God to you and to your offspring after you. And I will give to you and to your offspring. There's another promise God has given particularly. We need to remember He's given it to Abraham and his descendants after you, the land of your sojournings, all the land of Canaan, again for an everlasting possession. And I will be their God. An everlasting covenant and an everlasting possession. God makes a promise that will last forever, and God even gives good gifts that will last forever. The gifts that God gives are very good, and they will be ours forever. And I think we always need to remember that even when we are talking about our eternal final home, like heaven, and when the heavenly city in Revelation 21, when that heavenly city descends, what is the name of that heavenly city? Do you remember? It's called the New Jerusalem. So even there, God is taking the name. He is taking at least the idea of the place for being the possession of not only the Israelites, but all of the Gentiles that would be grafted into God's people. All the Gentiles that would enter into God's people, they're going to have a special possession, an everlasting possession that is called the New Jerusalem, the New Israel, if you will. And it says that God and I will be their God. I pray that has been a blessing to you, and we will continue our reading tomorrow. I'll see you then.